Hello and welcome viewers of this video, guys. My name is Chris and you can find me on YouTube as PoobedUpCheese. And today's video is going to involve my tips and tricks for playing the Legend Caustic in the new Battle Royale by Origin, Apex Legends. Now when you first pick up this game, there's going to be two legends that are locked behind an in-game currency, one of them being Caustic. His tactical ability is a gas trap that releases deadly gas when shot or triggered by a nearby enemy, and his ultimate is a Nox gas grenade that blankets a large area of surrounding gas. One major limit to Caustic's ability is that you can actually only hold 3 canisters at a time, and each one takes about 14 seconds to regenerate. So if you play patient, you can get up to 6 canisters, but once you place that 7th, the very first one that you place down will disappear. So you can leave a pretty good trail of these guys. One thing that's unique about Caustic is that he's actually one of the only defensive legends in the game, the other one being Gibraltar. People really tend to underestimate his potential and his ability and role in Apex Legends from what I found early on. And with his passive ability, the threat detector on any enemies that step or get hurt by your gas, he's going to be a very effective zoning close range and really defensively team-based legend. Caustic is not meant for someone that's going to be playing super aggro, running around and getting in like quick gunfights. You can't really throw down the gas canisters offensively because of the really long animation and just the ineffectiveness and ability of the enemies to move. So what I found is really effective is putting down a bunch of traps in one fortified building and being able to retreat to that building and use various healing or shields, and when the enemies push you, you actually get turned on the offensive because they're getting damage in your traps. It's just a really cool meta that I found being used with Caustic, and it really fit my playstyle well. Another thing that's actually good for the gas canisters is completely locking down doorways. Enemies cannot come from the outside and open that door if the gas canister is in front of it. They can use things like explosives and just shooting. I think the bottom of the canister will break it. But it just was a very effective way to completely actually eliminate entry points for enemies for a short period of time and allow things like healing and reviving. I almost found myself becoming a field medic in situations because of this like really strong defensive zoning potential. Also, something very important to note about Caustic is that he actually does not get affected by other enemy Caustic's gas canisters. You can see right here, I trigger this canister and take no damage and can still see through it relatively well. I don't believe you get the threat detect passive ability because the enemies are not actually taking damage, but it's something to note if you're going Caustic on Caustic. Something that newer players or players that have a very aggressive playstyle won't realize when playing Caustic is that his gas isn't necessarily for damage. It's more about intel and zoning. Just tagging an enemy once with the gas canister is going to give an audible cue that the enemy is there. If you have a gas canister far away in a building, you could place gas canisters throughout the town and they will alert you. You can see here in the middle of the building, you can just pinpoint where your enemy location is, and when they're low enough on health, actually finish the job off with your gas. When considering which unlockable legend to get first, either Caustic or Mirage in Apex Legends, I would strongly consider unlocking Caustic. If you're a newer player that really just kind of wants to understand the dynamic of this game better, getting kind of longer, prolonged, and more calculated gunfights where you have the control, Caustic is going to be like the #1 option. Just saucing out a couple traps in the very beginning of a gunfight, having the enemies trigger them, and being able to use that sight to your advantage is just a very rewarding feeling, and it made me, someone who wasn't very good at this game when it first came out, feel like I was making very useful plays and getting in a lot of damage. Oh, guys, right on us. Equip yourself with some close range weaponry, place down some traps in your close proximity, and you can watch even the most skilled opponents get overwhelmed and use that situational advantage to kill enemies that could already potentially be weakened by your gas. Once I got enough experience and playtime as Caustic, I started learning different spots within houses that are best to place the traps to maximize the exposure, which lanes are good to close off, and actually how to zone around my traps more effectively. Playing the height advantage is actually going to be another big thing with Caustic. putting down traps in lower altitudes and kind of jerry-rigging any zip lines or long-range mobility options for the enemy with gas is going to be a rude awakening for, again, a more aggro type of playstyle. Make sure to take cover when you're low on health and in a compromised situation, and watch your teammates and traps do the rest of the work. By the time you're finished with one squad, you'll have more traps at your disposal to prevent another third-party attempt. Now, the area of effect for each gas canister is actually pretty reliable, but one thing that's actually a detriment is how limited the throw range on these canisters actually is. You can only get it about 10 feet in front of you, so you're going to want to be aware of enemies that are pushing from afar and predict their movements to set up and force them to play into you. It's going to be a much easier way. You can see the threat vision going off right there. I can see exactly where this enemy's going, force them to come close with the shotgun, and we disposed of this team pretty easily. The best areas to drop as Caustic are actually going to affect how well you perform with him as well. Areas like the market, which is often a high tier loot drop, and Skulltown with the really linear alleyways of like connected buildings are going to be areas where Caustic's gadget is going to excel the most. Obviously, having grenades and throwing them into enclosed areas while enemies are stuck is going to be effective, but I'm not one to carry grenades often. So having essentially like 6 short-range grenades that also do area of effect damage and tag your opponents is just insane to me. Like I really think people are underestimating his potential, and especially in areas like this. We were completely third-partied, completely dead if the enemies ran in, but we were able to heal, revive, and regroup in the gas and push back out in a way that was just like so fun and rewarding. Now moving on to his ultimate ability, which actually literally is a grenade that you could throw a long distance with gas in it. It's gonna be essentially like Bangalore's smoke, but you can see through it. Like, this ability is very overpowered on top of the 6 gas canisters that you can have, and you can essentially lace an entire city or building completely up with gas and force enemies to do what you want them to do and go where you want them to go. All that being said about the utility and zoning based aspects of this gadget, it really can put out some damage. The longer the enemies stand in the gas, the more damage it does per second, and I've seen the gas start to tick up to 10 damage per second on people that are exposed long enough, and you could see, like in cases right there, the gas itself did over 70 damage. One thing to worry about these canisters is their slow deploy time and actually their really low damage right in the beginning. You can see that guy just sprints straight ahead through all 3 gas canisters. They don't have time to deploy, and it really only did 5 damage. Situational awareness and the element of surprise are going to be the 2 best methods to effectively get the most damage with your alternate gas grenade. Cover the exits with your canisters, move in for the kill with some close range weaponry, and use that threat vision to ultimately wipe out entire squads that are really unaware of what's going on. It was very rewarding, and Caustic is, in my opinion, one of the most effective and best played team-based operators in Apex Legends. If you learned something new about Caustic in today's Apex Legends guide, please feel free to leave a like and drop some positive feedback down in the comments. If you need to correct me on any information that was presented in today's video, or you yourself have a better use for Caustic, please also feel free to leave a comment. I hope you guys all have a beautiful and positive rest of your week. I appreciate your viewership sincerely, and I will catch you all in the next video.
Push too far up, Chris. Oh my god, or push? The fuck, is that all of them?
Just one, maybe.
Just one?